your story.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Saturday Night Church Live, New Life Community. Glad to have you with us. That's the song called Hero by the Newsboys. Not too old, back in 2016, 17, I believe. Maureen and I were talking just a minute ago, and I remember seeing the Newsboys way back when I was, teenager. And saw them at Kingdom Bound in Darien Lake, a big Christian festival similar to the ones we have here in Pennsylvania. But saw them their very first concert in the U.S. And it was literally just a handful of us in this little offshoot kind of one of the back area pavilions. They did a concert, and and then they turned into this huge band. So fun to listen to them. But reality is that Michael Tate, who was with DC Talk, he's now the lead singer. And so anyway, I'm giving you far more than you need to know. But it's fun to see bands like that who have gone the distance and are still writing great stuff. It's all about Jesus being our hero. And so that's why I thought that's going to be a great song for Saturday night tonight, that Jesus is the hero. If you're tuning in for the first time, want a special welcome to you, and glad to have you with us. Pastor Maureen is putting up in Facebook at some point throughout our time together a digital connect card. It's already there on YouTube, and if you're first time connecting with us, we'd love to have you fill that connect card out, and it's a way we can get connected to you, and you can get connected to us. What did you do today that you're celebrating? I'd love to hear from you. So over the next few minutes, as I'm sharing some things with you, updates, ways to connect, what today are you celebrating? I'll give us a few that are coming up this week. Star, her birthday is this week, and so happy birthday, Star. Jeff Detweiler Sr., his birthday's coming up this week. Chuck Vaughn from Canada. His birthday's this week, and I know off and on he and Ellen check in. Some of you who I know watch know them well, so you can tell them that he made international birthday news. And then Nina Poe, who attends Meeting House. Michelle Elston's mom, her birthday's this week, so I thought Michelle would get a kick out of telling her that we mentioned that on Facebook too. So happy birthday to all of you. And what else are you celebrating? You can start typing those in real quick. And a couple ways, really want to encourage you, if you don't get the newsletter is the best way to stay connected to kind of what are the main things happening around New Life Community. Also our website, newlifecommunity.us. If you don't get the newsletter, you can just shoot us a message right on here and say, I don't get the newsletter. I'd like to get it. Give us your email so that we can make sure we've got that right. If you're not getting it, check your junk mail. Sometimes Google and those other mail providers will stick them in junk, thinking they change things up. And if you're interested in being a part of one of our either online or potentially, as we're moving forward here, in person, small groups and Bible studies, would encourage you to reach out to, you can either put a message on here or Pastor Victoria. Her email is victoria@newlifecommunity.us. And so if you're interested in being a part of a small group Bible study gathering, we would love to know that so we can get you connected. We're going to get those started again here in the next little bit. and want to make sure we have everybody connected. So again, let Pastor Victoria know. Also, this last week, if you go to our Life Cycle Facebook page, we had our first Life Cycle work and training night. It was 7 of us that were working in Life Cycle and being trained by a couple of mechanics, and really great time together. If you're interested in being a part of those nights, being trained and working with your hands, would love, you can connect with me and let you know when the next one's going to be. And again, that's you could just let me know, email Pastor Ryan at newlifecommunity.us, or you can reply here and we'll make a note of it and get back to you when that is. But we turned out 7 bikes on Thursday night for the community. So it's a great time to connect and get together. Good way to serve, along with all the other things that we have happening at New Life. So what are we celebrating? Anybody celebrating anything tonight?
Bonnie said she got a painting job done yesterday and all the gear is clean today. So.
Yay, Bonnie cleaned up all that painting gear, big painting job finished. Congratulations, Bonnie. Yeah, that was a big one, 3 days. So can't imagine all that cleanup either. That's the part I hate. I don't love painting, but the prep and then the cleanup are the 2 things. If I could just go in and paint, I'm happy. But yeah, don't love it.
And Jennifer Young just said celebrating relaxing Saturday evening and the ability to be here with us.
Nice. Love having you, Jen, and glad that you're able to have a relaxing day today. I'm celebrating. I worked in the garden all morning and harvested a ton of stuff. So literally, I've pickled beets. I've made another kind of pickle called Lucky Pickle. Did a batch of zucchini relish, and now I've got a batch of 11-day icicle pickles going. So we've had a full day in the kitchen, and we made stromboli. So we had a productive day, and that was all homemade too. From the dough all the way, pretty much everything was from scratch. So lots of fun. Well, let's dig in tonight. The last 4 weeks, we've been talking about the road to deliverance, basically the last month. And we've talked about deliverance being a journey. I've said this, but sometimes we think like God's just going to deliver me and it's done. And I think that just gets a lot of us messed up because we think it should just be finished. But then, we kind of get into a new, rhythm of a deeper place of where we're looking for deliverance. And, deliverance, I think we're being continually delivered. And so as we talked about that, deliverance, the act of being rescued or set free. And I just want to remind us the formula of deliverance that we saw in Psalm 34 was we worship God, we pursue God, we honor God, and we let God grow us. We just pursue growth. And those 4 things, I really believe that if we walk in them and we encourage people, those are a tool for you to be able to use with others, to share with others in how to walk in the freedom and rescue of Jesus. Worship, pursue, honor, and grow. And so that was just, it was a great 4-week series and really good stuff. Just wanted to remind us of it. Don't be afraid to write them down and keep them, kind of in your tool belt. And then, when you're struggling, pull them out. Tonight, I want to start with some questions. And hey, Chuck, I see that you're on there, my friend. Good to bless you tonight, and all the way up there in North Bay. So I want to start with some questions tonight. Okay, and you may need a piece of paper. You may need your journal to put these in. The first question is, through what lens do I view life? And Maureen's gonna put these up, but through what lens do I view life? Second question, what lens am I looking through these days? What lens am I looking through these days? As I'm looking at life, what lens am I looking through these days? Maybe another way to word the question is, how am I seeing the world? How am I seeing the world? And then a fourth question, am I tripping up? Am I tripping up because of the wrong lens? Am I tripping up because of the wrong lens? These are not quick answer questions. And I know that, and that's intentional, but they're questions I want you to be thinking about. They're questions I want you to be processing for the next week. The lens that we are looking through will affect everything in our lives. Especially when we're walking through cultural minefields. And we, right now, in this day, this age, this time period, we are walking in literally a cultural minefield. We keep seeing, explosion after explosion, in so many different ways and in places and through cultures and people, and you name it. We're just seeing explosions. And the lens that we're looking through, the lens that we're looking at all of these things happening, it's going to affect everything in our lives. Before I started wearing these reading glasses, I really didn't know, or maybe I didn't want to believe how bad my reading was getting. I really wasn't fully aware of how much poor eyesight was affecting the speed of my reading, the quality of my reading, even the amount that I was reading. I think I had almost like stopped reading at some levels because I was having such difficulty with it, and maybe I wasn't willing or ready to admit that I needed a different set of lenses. I needed to look at the pages through a different set of lens. And, and I remember when we went in the first time to try them on and look at them, higher strengths were too much. It was like, as soon as I put them on, it was like, whoa, what's going on here? And then there was the ones that had barely any change whatsoever, not enough of a lens. And the what?
Goldilocks.
Yeah, it literally was, Maureen said, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. This one, too much, not enough, and then there was just right. And the right lens changed everything. It's amazing. Like, even if I were to take this off, like right now, my page, it goes blurry. Now, if I back up and I hold out here, then I can read it. The problem is that way I'm slow. The other thing is if I wear these glasses walking around, I'm going to trip. Literally, like, they are horrible for trying to walk around. And so kids laugh at me and Maureen laughs at me because I'll kind of put them on my nose so that while I'm watching TV, I can look up at the TV and see it normal, and I can look down, and I know some of you are going to type in there something about bifocals. So the lens that we're looking through, this is what we really want to get to, is really important. And not just physically, but spiritually. And that's really, let's get to the meat of it, okay? I've given us enough of a context with talking about lenses and glasses. We could go on with photography, and, the reality is that the lenses matter. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12. 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12. I want to read it first in the New International Version, then I'm going to read it in the Message, because I love, kind of the juxtaposition between the two. So 1 Corinthians 13, verse 12 in the NIV says, "For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. Now, in the Message version, I love how it's worded. We don't yet see things clearly. We're squinting in a fog, peering through a mist. But it won't be long before the weather clears and the sun shines bright. We'll see it all then. See it all as clearly as God sees us, knowing him directly as he knows us. It's really good. And I think it's really important as we're thinking through this, we're talking about this, that we're honest that right now it's impossible for in our humanity to see things clearly. If we're looking through the lens of our humanity, we are not going to see things as they truly are. And it's going to lead us to some really, really ugly places. And I could talk on this for hours. We're not gonna tonight. But I do want to talk about 3 lenses that I think we have to guard against. But the reality is, I think there are 3 lenses that we may very well be caught looking through right now as we look at the world around us and we look at what's happening in the world around us. And I think they're lenses that we've got to guard against. The first is the lens of politics, the political lens. And for those of you who are in Canada, it's a little different. But for those of us in the United States, we've got to be really careful. I think, everything right now, whether it is the from natural disasters to humanitarian issues, to COVID-19, to the violence that we see happening, to racism, every single issue has tended or tends to move towards being politicized, to becoming a political issue, or being used by politicians in order to further agenda or to bring about kind of a changing worldview. And I think we've got to be really, really careful that we don't start looking at the things that are happening and the things around us. We don't start looking at other people through the lens of politics. I always find it interesting when I'm in a dialogue with someone who is one side of the party or the other, whether they're Republican or Democrat. But when they typically, and I'm not just talking about like radical people, I'm talking about average US people here, average citizens. When somebody who aligns themselves with a political party begins talking about the person in the other party, it's almost as that the human ceases to exist, and the talk about it becomes almost like antagonistic and like we're talking about our enemy. And we begin to view, when we view one another through the political lens, we begin viewing people not necessarily as people, but our enemies. And I know you're going to say, well, enemies are people, but I think when we start to vilify people, we no longer see them as human, created by God, loved by God, redeemed by God. And so we need to really make sure when we start looking at COVID-19, not through the lens of what it really is, a health issue, and we begin looking through the lens of politics, then it really starts to make it such a it just messes it up. And I don't want to go into all of what that is, but when we start looking at things through political lenses, it's not going to lead us to a good place. Because Jesus said that he came and that we're to pray for the kingdom to come on earth just as it is in heaven. That means the kingdom is not here. The kingdom is coming. The kingdom of heaven is different than the kingdom of this world. And I know some of us may have differing theological opinions, but as far as we are, New Life, Brethren in Christ Church, we believe that this world is not the kingdom of heaven. and that there are two kingdoms. There's the kingdom of this world and there's the kingdom of heaven. And Jesus is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And as when we look through the lens of politics, then we see other people, in a sense, seated on the throne. And we have to be really careful. Second lens that I think we can tend to look through is the lens of pain. The lens of pain. And when I start looking at the world around and the events of the world around through my woundedness, through the events of my past, kind of all of the pain that's been there, when I start looking through my hurt and woundedness, then everything gets skewed. I can either move to the side where I become super self-centered, super sensitive. I can also, become like super protective. Like I can get angry quickly because, pain, the lens of pain is a lens that, has been hurt. And so we can tend to operate in that place of wounding and hurt. And it takes us to a place of seeing things, in somewhat of it's not reality. So we've got to be careful that we don't start looking through the lens of pain. Again, I could go into each of these further, but I don't want to tonight. We don't have time. I think a third lens that we can be looking at or looking through right now is the lens of power. And there's a couple different pieces to this. When we start looking through the lens of power, especially when we think of, us kind of in North America, Canada, I'm thinking specifically of us in the US, we can tend to think of ourselves as a country, as a nation over the rest of the world. We start looking from a place of power. I think it's one of the things too, for those of us that are white and we've experienced privilege, we can very quickly, we start looking through the lens of power. And I know we would never, it's not like I say, I want to look through I'm going to use the lens of power to look at the world. But I think because of where we've been, many of us, we've had money, we've had privilege, we've had opportunity. And so therefore we look at everything through from what we've had. What it does is it keeps us from really having a global mindset. And yet a global mindset, we're a global world. We're not just, one size fits all. We are a global world with many different people and cultures and socioeconomic backgrounds, you name it. We're a global society, not just one size fits all, one group of people, but we can very easily get caught looking through these lenses. Lens of politics, lens of pain, the lens of power. And again, we just can't go deeper into those tonight. I think the questions that I gave you at the beginning, these are where I want you to start to think through this week. So what if those lenses are lenses that we can tend to look through, but we don't want to get stuck in those, then what lens do we need to be looking through? And I'd say the lens that we need to be looking through is the lens of the person of Jesus. Notice there are all 4 P's. the person of Jesus. Here, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 4 through 6. 2 Corinthians 4, 4 through 6 says this. Paul's writing to the Corinthian church. And you know what? The Corinthian church was a church where Paul, throughout that whole letter, is really encouraging them to be not looking through the lens of the culture and the age and the, what they were expecting. And he says this, he says, the God of this age has blinded the minds of unbelievers so that they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. For what we preach is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ is Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. I love that. The God of this age, Satan has blinded people, and he is still attempting. If you're a believer in Jesus, your eyes have been opened to the reality of Christ, but he still tempts us to look through these other lenses. But for many people around us, they are still blinded. They yet haven't come to a knowledge of Jesus. They haven't seen him for who he is, and therefore they can't see the light of the gospel. The problem with looking through the lens of politics, pain, power is that we miss the good news of the gospel when we're looking through those lenses. We're looking through the lens of politics. We're looking to people to bring about rescue, deliverance. When we're looking through the lens of pain, we're protected. We're not trusting. We're holding back. When we're looking through the lens of power, it's like we don't need a savior. We become our own gods. We become our own saviors. But what happens when the gospel's visible, we come to realize, and many of you who are watching tonight, the reason you chose Jesus is because you realized how much you need him. It's like the blinders came off and the reality of Christ was right there. And so the God of this age has blinded the minds of believers so they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Jesus. What is the glory of Jesus? It's the goodness of Jesus, the miracles of Jesus, the transforming power of Jesus, all of who Jesus is. That's what we've been given sight to. The God who said, let light shine out of darkness. And Jesus, when he died on the cross, darkness came over the earth. But then when he rose again, it's like the light shone in the darkness. Death was defeated. Sin conquered. And he made his light shine. One of the darkest places was our heart. And yet the light of Christ penetrated our hearts. And he gave us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in Jesus. And so we need to be looking through the lens of Jesus. When we're looking at what's happening around us, we need to be looking at it through the lens of Christ. Now, what does that mean? Well, we need to be looking at things through the life of Jesus. So I think, we need to know Jesus' life, what he did, how he did it, where he went, why he went there. You think about all of the different aspects of Jesus' life, and it all fits into every experience that we have. And so when we're looking at the world around us, we need to be thinking about, what would Jesus do? That was an old WWJD. Came out years and years. I remember as a late teenager, I believe, is when that came out. But what would Jesus do? looking at the world through the life of Jesus. Did Jesus experience, like viruses? Did Jesus experience illness? Yeah, he did, in lots of ways. He even touched the lepers who were looked at as people, similar to, COVID. Like, he touched them. Now I think what's interesting about that is he just didn't go at it willy-nilly. So we need to read about his life. I'm not even going to explain that. You can look at it and look at the correlation. But look at his life. How did he view these things? The disciples were talking about Caesar, and Jesus caught the fish and popped a coin out of its mouth and gave them the coin and said, whose face is on it? Caesar's. Give to Caesar what's Caesar's. Honor the government. But at the same time, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I think we need to look at the teaching of Jesus. So we look at the life of Jesus. We look at the teaching of Jesus. Jesus' teaching was he taught in parables. He taught in simple ways, but yet it was so profound, right? And so when we start looking at Jesus' teaching, and I think right now, more than ever, we need to get back to the teachings of Jesus so that we can understand, because he was talking and teaching to people who were in a culture very similar to ours. It's not like we're all of a sudden experiencing something totally different. Same things, different things, but same things in a different context. But it's all the same. And Jesus walked it out, taught about it, and led through it. So we need to look at his teachings. And then I think we need to look at the work of Jesus. What did Jesus do with it? So how did Jesus live? What did Jesus teach? And then what did Jesus do? And I think when we start to put those three things together and we start to look at what's going on around us, it's going to change the way we look. It's going to change the way we respond. It's going to change the way we interact. We're going to be experiencing super effective, kind of like Christian living. It's a Christ-centered worldview versus kind of being blown back and forth. And I see a lot of people being blown back and forth, looking through these other three lenses that they don't even realize. I think sometimes we start looking through these lenses, we don't even realize we're looking at through them. And I'm not saying one is greater than the other. They weren't listed in any order: politics, pain, or power. I mean, they're all three, I think, equally ugly, equally dangerous, but yet equally, we fall prey to them. Any one of us. And that's why I think the questions are so important. How do we keep the right lens? So if we want to have a Jesus lens, a Christocentric, we could say Christocentric lens as we look at the world around us, then how do we keep that lens? How do we keep focused there? I think first of all, and then you're going to be like, yeah, of course, but I think we need to tune in to Bible and prayer. Like, I think we've just got to really be tuned in to the Bible right now. Not that we always shouldn't be, but I think it is volatile right now around us. And so we've really got to be tuned in. We've got to have the right lens. And so that means we've got to be tuned in to the Bible. We've got to be tuned into prayer. We need to be hearing him, and we need to be hearing him both through the word and through prayer. We need to be engaged. I think that's why in today's chats that many of you take in, we've been going through Psalms. And I think the way to pray, the Bible gives us so many ways. And we're just looking at literally most often one verse a day, from all these Psalms. Today was day 55. And so 55 days of praying something different. So we got to be tuned in. I think secondly, we've got to tune out cultural noise. And that's not easy. It's not easy at all, but we've got to tune it out. You know, it may be, where are we getting our news? Where are we tuned into the news? You know, we all know, those of us who are in the US specifically, those of you in Canada know this too, but our news is so biased. You know, like you don't get good, healthy, helpful news. I wish we could just get the news, not the news through lenses that are not helpful. It's so hard to constantly, and this is where I think we need to be tuned into the Bible so that we can, when we hear the news, when we look at the news, we're wise enough to not fall prey to the claws that kind of grab in to pull us. It's amazing how, you know, little things twisted from one news station to another can pull people into believing things that then we find out aren't even true. So we've got to tune out cultural noise. You know, what are we reading? What are we looking at? In our conversations with people, what are we engaged in? It's okay to say, I really don't want to engage with this. I don't want to talk politics. I don't want to, you know, go down this road. It's okay to do that, especially if we can tell people, when I look at the world through that lens, it's not healthy for my soul. We want to be tuning in to the things that are life-giving. And then the third thing, how do we keep the right lens? We need to turn to community with right perspectives. That's why it's so cool that we get to be on here together on Saturday nights. It's as helpful or more helpful for me than likely for all of you. For me to get to think on different topics and process through them, you know, these are things I've been wrestling with. You know, to not get pulled into all of the political things, to not get pulled into the pain and the anger and the violence of, you know, of many of our, you know, I can't get the word in my head, the protests, and to have the right perspective on what's going on there, and to not just go down unhealthy roads and feeling people's pain or taking on pain, you know, right now with jobs being lost. And, you know, if I'm looking through the lens of pain, this is another way of that this happens. I start taking on people's baggage, you know, so somebody loses their job. Now I feel responsible, you know, to help them find it or to provide for them, and I can't, like, that's not my job. It's not my role. It's not what I'm called to do. It's none of us are called to take that on. Jesus said, you know, that we're to give that stuff to him, and then we walk with one another. So I think one of the things is turning to one another, turning to people with right perspectives. We've really got to be, more than ever, we've got to be together. We've got to have a united kind of a perspective, the Christ's perspective on things that are happening, so that we can be focused as one. The enemy's done such a good job of dividing the church, you know, of making people angry with one another. And if there is ever a time for us to major on the majors, it's right now, to love one another, to be focused on the right things, and to be leading in our communities, to be leading in our families, to be leading in our workplaces, by keeping the right lens, by looking at the world and all that's happening through the right lens. You know, when we have that, when we have a community of people that are looking, you know, with the Christocentric lens, with a Jesus-focused, Jesus-centered, Bible kind of, you know, built framework and perspective, the encouragement that comes from that is so incredible. I think of Stephen as he was being stoned. And I've often put myself in that place in Acts. I think it's Acts 7, where Stephen's being stoned. And what does he do? Where's his focus? He could be looking at the people that he knew, people I'm sure that he had rubbed shoulders with, people that he had talked to, and they're picking up these giant boulders, and with anger, they're like throwing them at him. He could have looked through again, the political lens, the pain lens, the power lens, and he could have been angry, and he could have been, all kinds of things, but he doesn't. What does he do? He looks to Jesus. He just keeps looking up. And it's while he's being stoned, the glory of God is just shining on him. And I tell you what, if we right now are loving and leading and walking by looking through the lens of Jesus, you and I we're going to represent Jesus. We're going to shine the light of Christ. So back to the questions that I asked you earlier tonight as we close. Through what lens are you viewing life right now? What lens are you looking through these days? Are you kind of, looking more through one of those other ones that I mentioned? How are you seeing the world? Are you cynical? Are you experiencing depression, anxiety? See, anxiety and depression would tend to be the lens of pain. If we're looking through the lens of, are you tripping up, because of one of those lenses? I think if you find yourself, kind of like tripping up, then it could be that one of those lenses are there, and I think we need Holy Spirit. Because one of the things I think is just true is that our eyes can adjust pretty well to the lens that we're looking through so that we can manage. And it's not until, those are kind of taken off and we go, whoa, I was missing something. Or we put them on and whoa, yeah, I was missing a whole lot. So what lens? I want you to journal about it. I want you to pray about it, because I want us to be a people who are Jesus focused, Jesus centered, seeing things as Jesus would see. We'll be world changers when we do. May God bless you. May he keep you. Let me pray for you as we go. Lord, thank you for this time together. Thank you for your word. It's so true, so powerful. Think of, this passage, Lord, in 1 Corinthians 13. We don't see things clearly. We're squinting in a fog, peering through a mist. And we are thankful. I am thankful, Lord, that it won't be long before the weather clears and the sun shines bright. Would you help us even tonight, Lord? If we're looking through lenses, these ones I mentioned, maybe others that you bring to mind, would you, in your grace and your mercy, show us that we might take them off and put you on, Jesus. Look at the world through you. Look at what's going on around us through you. The experiences and problems that we may have in our life, we know that you see them differently. And so we want to see as you see. We know that one day we're going to see you alone. You're going to return. All things are going to be made new. And we look forward to that day. Until then, though, we want to be men and women. We want to be young people who are making a difference, who live differently, who lead differently, so that people around us would see you. Take us deeper in these things, I pray. Bless each one with rest, with great sense of your covering, your blessing, your favor. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. Look forward to being with you tomorrow morning between 8 and 9. I'll be doing today's chat, and then tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. we'll be on here live, as well as in person. We'll be gathering in Carlisle, and so if you feel comfortable coming, wearing a mask, then we would encourage you to come and gather. If not, then we would encourage you to be a part of our church family here online, and we'll continue to get through this together, loving one another. See you, everyone. Take care.